Hi and welcome. This fanfic is called What Is Due and is created by Yojimbra. Link in description. It is another Naruto x Karin story. There is no fight in this, it is romance adventure type of story. Chapters are short, about 15 minutes. So let's start. Chapter 1. Rain was horrible, it meant a lack of sunshine, a lack of dryness, an overabundance of wet. In the grass, the rain often brought thunderstorms, massive dark clouds like angry gods raining down death and destruction. But worse was the floods, they came without warning and wreaked devastation. A flood took everything from her once before. She was barely a child when it happened, she remembered her mother being happy, her father being alive, and her home. They had a home, not the crappy shack that she and her mother used to live in, but a real home with a real yard and a real family. But then a flood came, taking her home, her father, their happiness, and eventually her mother. Leaving Karin alone in this cold dark world to cut out a place for herself. She had felt and seen happiness when she participated in the Chunin exams in Konoha, when she was rescued by a boy Sasuke Uchiha. But since then her life had become hell. They probably think I'm dead already, Karin shivered as a gust of wind blew up into her shelter, a small cave along the steep incline of a raging river that Karin had to pull herself out of. Her dismal fire, barely more than a glowing pile of embers, sputtered and faded with the wind and rain before it surged back to life. She'd have to get more wood soon. This was all their fault, she had told them that this mission was dangerous, she had told them that it was too risky, she warned them about the weather. But those idiots said that everything would be fine, that she could heal any wounds they got, and that if she died it was her fault for being weak. Bastards, she ripped off her headband and threw it into the fire. They didn't care if she lived or died, so why should she care about them? The only person in her life that cared about her was her. It had been that way ever since her mom died. The strap of her headband fed the fire, while the metal plate sunk into the growing pile of ash. She pushed all of her hatred into watching that plate burn, hoping that it would start to melt or that it was some dark symbolic ritual set the whole village aflame. Thunder clapped and that anger died. She screamed, good loud and hard, pressing herself up against a cold, wet wall of the cave. Please, someone come, I can't take it anymore. She just wanted to be safe and warm and dry and not starving. It didn't matter with who or where. Anywhere was better than here. And anyone was better than being alone. If only Sasuke was here. If I get attacked by a bear again, I wonder if he'd show up. The thought brought a smile to her face, barely strong enough to stop the tears from falling from her face. She pushed her glasses up and wiped her eyes, only succeeding in getting more rainwater on her face. The fire began to fade. If she went out there, she might die. If she didn't, she'd freeze to death. She could already feel the early stages hypothermia began to set in. The kind of wood didn't matter, even waterlogged would be fine with her jutsu, she just needed the fuel. With a groan, Karin stood with slow and shaky movements, ready to run back inside the second she saw another flash of lightning. The wind had died down, but the sky was still dark and heavy with rain. Hopefully it doesn't start hailing. Through the curtain of rain, she surveyed the area, scanning for any kind of wood, a fallen tree, some driftwood, anything. She saw a large log stuck against a rock near the shore, probably brought from upriver. And there was something orange on it. Wait, that's a person. She closed her eyes and focused on her mind's eye, he was alive, if only barely. With slow, careful steps down the rocky slopes, Karin advanced towards them. He was a blonde boy, half drowned and covered in blood. The only thing stopping him from being dragged down river was his orange jacket, a massive hole torn through it was snagged on one of the branches and was getting close to tearing loose. He seemed familiar, kind of. There was no headband symbolizing his allegiance, was he even a ninja? Gritting her teeth, Karin placed a hand on the log and stepped onto the water. Normally walking on water wouldn't be a problem for her, but she was tired, hungry, afraid, and the water was wild. She needed to be careful, a slip for her would likely mean both of their deaths. She inched her way towards him, both hands holding firm to the log. Why on earth was she risking her life for a stranger? Especially one that was probably going to die anyway. There was no way that his body wasn't in late stages of hypothermia, plus there was the blood that was still leaking from his head. Biting her lip, she extended her hand outward and grabbed him by the collar. Lightning struck. Thunder boomed. A tree set aflame, splintered in two, crashed down into the river. Karin screamed, throwing herself onto the log as her concentration failed her feet slipping down into the water. Her glasses fell from her head, tumbling off the log and into the raging water below. Another reason to call this day an absolute monstrosity that had no right to exist. The clarity she once viewed the world with was gone, and everything became vague, dark, and blurry. Slow, deep, even breaths. I'm in a valley surrounded by tall trees. The lightning won't hit me, the lightning won't hit. She tried to stop the shaking, but she couldn't even move, her body was paralyzed, and her feet were growing numb. She had to move. Somehow among the rain and wind, she heard the boy's jacket tear and his body shake loose. She lunged, grabbing holding of the boy by his arm, his head lolling in the water. One hand sticking to the log with chakra even as her fingers were losing their feeling. Why was she risking her life for his again? With what little strength she had left in her, she pulled, dragging the boy behind her. Inch by painful inch she moved towards the shore. Karin looked at the boy when she pulled him up onto shore. Not that it did much good, his features were a blur to her, all that she could tell was that his shirt, much like his jacket, had a large hole where the heart was. Dried blood covered much of his torso, but his heart was still beating. Now, she pointed toward her cave and let out a sigh. I have to carry your ass all the way up there. This better be the son of some nobleman she was saving. Somehow she managed to drag the blonde boy up into her cave, where the glowing embers of her fire offered little in the warmth she was hoping for. Once again she tried to turn her anger and annoyance into something useful by staring at the embers. Nothing happened. Maybe you have something that can help me? The boy had some useful stuff, a few ration bars, she quickly ate one, a few scrolls that she couldn't read, and several kunai. So she rescued a ninja, there went her noble son dream. Maybe he came from one of the nice villages that would be so grateful she saved his life that they'd offer her a spot among them? I guess there's no way of telling until you wake up, huh? She poked him in the cheek and sighed. She didn't even get any wood for her fire, just a useless boy, at least his body heat might do something, probably not. The sky cracked and thunder exploded as the log he had been stuck on was shattered into flaming splinters. Even if she wanted to go get some of the precious fire, it was too risky, she could barely see, and it was only getting darker. Which meant it was going to get colder. I can't believe I'm about to do this, she growled, taking off the boy's jacket with extra venom. His shirt was next, then his pants. Leaving him in just his underwear. Even if she couldn't really see, there was no way she was going to take those off for him. If you wake up before I do and get any funny ideas, I'm going to kick your ass. Assuming they live through the night. Karin placed her chain shirt next to his and spread out their clothes as good as she could around the fire in the vague hope of the embers drying them. But with the wind blowing rain, she doubted it would do much. Clad in nothing but her underwear, she grabbed the boy and pulled him close, using his body as a shield for the rain and a source of warmth. He was oddly warm, despite being pulled out from a water. It was nice, even if it was the most embarrassing position she'd ever been in. She'd probably die if somebody were to find her like this. With the feeling returning to most of her body, save her toes that were going to fall off any moment now, Karin allowed herself a few moments to collect herself. She needed a plan. If it was still raining tomorrow and Blondie was still knocked out, they'd probably die. If he was awake, she could send him out into the rain to gather firewood, unless he couldn't see shit like her, then they both die. No rain and she would wait for him to wake up. If he didn't, she'd probably leave him and take what she could of his and try to make her way to a village. If he did, they'd head off together to the nearest village, get directions, and then she would insist that he take her to his village. He owed her for saving his life after all. You better at least be cute, rich, or useful, Karin mumbled before she forced herself to sleep. She still couldn't believe that she was cuddling in her underwear with some boy she never met before. Morning. When she awoke, it still smelled like rain, but the sun had finally peeked out from behind the clouds. Or so she thought. It looked bright and cheery out there, and there were birds happily chirping in the distances. But that wasn't what concerned Karin the most. Sure, it not raining and a lack of thunder was a great thing, however, it was her companion that concerned her. At some point, her catatonic cuddle buddy had moved during the night and was now hugging her tightly. It was actually kind of nice. And warm. But that was beside the point. Blondie was awake, or at least moving. Pushing herself out of his arms, Karin tried to examine him once more. She still couldn't see shit without her glasses. They were probably lost in the river forever now, those things were expensive. He owed her a new pair of glasses. He owed her a lot actually, maybe he was one of those oath-bound idiots and he'd be her eternal manservant. She stared at him for a few silent moments, trying to figure out if he was asleep or not. He probably was, she'd wake him up after she was dressed. He did not need any thoughts about her cuddling him in their underwear in order to stay warm. The good news was that her clothes were kind of dry. So she had that going for her. She poked him in the cheek. "Hey, wake up." He groaned and slapped her hand away. "Rude. I said wake up." She shouted right in his ear. "Ah, I'm awake." Blondie shot up like a rocket, stumbling forward and almost hitting his head on the low-hanging roof. He turned to her, still in his underwear. Who are you?" Well, he certainly didn't have any shame, standing in front of her in nothing but his underwear. Shame she couldn't tell if he was hot or not. For all she knew, he could be ugly. He didn't sound hot. "I'm Karen, I'm the girl that saved your life by pulling you out of the river. Now who are you?" "Me? There's no one else around." "Oh, I don't know." That didn't sound good. Karen took a deep breath and tried to think about this calmly. Maybe he just didn't know if he should tell her his name? Maybe he was shy or something. "You don't know, as in you don't know who you are?" "Yay, that one, do you know who I am?" He was an idiot. An idiot that didn't know who he was. Karen wanted to scream. So she did. A good long healthy scream. End of chapter 1. Chapter 2. So where are we going? Karen groaned at the orange-clad back of Blondie, or at least the orange vaguely human-shaped blob of color that was her companion. He just had to be an amnesiac idiot. "We're following the river, it'll eventually lead to a town where we can, hopefully not starve." Both of them were broke. Very, very broke. She lost all her money when her team left her for dead, and he probably lost his wallet or didn't bring it when he fell into a river and lost all his memories. But what if there is no town on the river? Blondie asked, climbing over a fallen log that barred their path. At least he was nice enough to offer her a hand up. "And why do I have to help you walk?" Maybe he was amnesiac before and the person that found him before was so sick of his shit they pushed him into the river? "Because I lost my glasses saving your life." She told him that 3 times already. "So I can't see where I'm going." "And we're following the river because all the rivers in the region are tributaries of the Megami River, and yes, there are cities on that river." Oh, he pulled her up over the log easily and helped her down as well. At least he was a decent guide dog. Shame they already ate all of his ration bars. "How do you know that this isn't the Mogai something river?" "Stop asking so many questions." "And it's Megami." Karen took a soft step forward as she tried to navigate the uneven forest floor, something difficult enough when she can see. "And trust me, the Megami River is big, you'll know it when we see it." Okay," Blondie said, from his point position. "But what do we do when we get to a town or something?" "Find me some damn glasses." Being blind was so unbelievably annoying, mostly because her seeing eye idiot was, well, an idiot. "And then after that, you owe me." "Owe you what?" She took a deep breath. She needed to stay calm. If she pissed him off, there was nothing that she could do to stop him. Then she'd be stuck alone in the middle of a forest blind. "I saved your life, so you have to get me a new life. That means a home that was better than my old home, you got that?" Oh, he sounded like he was trying to sound like he understood what she meant. "And how do I do that?" "Hopefully by turning out to be someone important from a nice village. Like Konoha." Konoha would be ideal, then she'd be in the same village as Sasuke, she could introduce herself, he would remember her, they would date, they would have sex, she would make certain that she got pregnant, then he'd marry her, and she'd be set. The Uchiha were important or something, she heard the daimyo say so. Konoha? Blondie stopped in his tracks right in Karen's path. She stepped on a gnarled root in an odd way, her ankle slipped and twisted sharply to one side. The pain was enough to send her to the ground. God damn it. Would you stop? Huh? Oh. Karen, are you okay? Her valiant orange blob leapt to her defense, his hand falling to her ankle. That's not supposed to look like that, is it? No, it's not, damn it, I rolled my ankle. Karen hissed in pain as Blondie touched it gingerly. What do I do? How can I fix it? Should I push it back? If she wasn't in so much pain, his panicking might have been cute. No, you idiot, she grabbed him by his shoulder and pulled him away from her foot. Help me up, I might still be able to walk. He helped her stand, supporting her upper body as she slowly tried to put pressure on her foot. The second her foot tried to bear any weight, searing pain shot through her body. Damn it, I can't walk this, Blondie, you're going to have to carry me. Okay. He picked her up bridal style. You're lighter than you look. Yes, her permanent diet of being a broke-ass bitch. Wait, this was wrong. Nobody but a hunky hunk should be carrying her like this, and even then only to their bedroom. Not like this. Carry me on your back. Huh? On my back? How do I do that? I don't have arms there. Just, Karen sighed and latched her arms around Blondie's neck. He better not get any funny ideas about this. If he even got any ideas. Just put me down, and I'll show you how. With one foot on the ground, she hobbled around him and leaned against him. At least he was sturdy. Okay, I'm going to hop up onto your back, so lean forward a bit and then hook your arms under my legs. Got that? Okay? Like a good obedient dog, he did as she said. With a grunt, she hopped up onto his back and he caught her legs. There, you should be able to walk much longer like this. He started to walk forward, his face right next to hers as her arms were draped around his neck like she was a scarf. How long do I have to carry you like this anyway? It shouldn't be too long. I am an Uzumaki, so I heal quick. Yes, her only real claim to fame, the Uzumaki abilities that everybody just loved taking advantage of. From making fun of her red hair to her pasty skin, and how could she forget the numerous scars on her body from people that wanted to appreciate her Uzumaki heritage? Uzumaki? Blondie questioned. He shifted her weight slightly so that he was cupping her ass. Karen gasped. It wasn't the first time that somebody had grabbed her ass. But that didn't mean it was okay. Quit touching my butt. Huh? Oh, sorry. He didn't even seem to care as he navigated the forest, keeping River to their right. Man, for someone so cute you sure are bossy. That was a first. The first time a boy decides to give her a compliment and she's too blind to even tell if he's cute or not. He didn't sound cute, he sounded stupid. But it was enough for her cheeks to feel warm and maybe just maybe a bit happy about her current situation. You think I'm cute? Huh? Well, yay. She could practically hear the smile in his voice as they scrambled down a slight cliff. Like your hair, it's really pretty. Oh, and when you're not squinting you have pretty eyes, and I bet if you were to smile it'd be super pretty too. Those were the nicest things anybody has ever said to me. She tightened her grip and pressed her face into his shoulder, burying her smile in his jacket. Maybe it was worth saving you after all. Shame he wasn't Sasuke or cute. Or probably anybody rich, powerful, or, wait, she didn't even know how much chakra he had. With a sigh that could easily be confused as a grunt, Karen closed her eyes and began to see the world with her mind's eye. She was nearly blinded by the sheer amount of chakra coming off of Blondie. It wasn't just a lot, it was more chakra than anybody in her village had ever had. Even the head ninja couldn't hold a candle next to Blondie. But there was more. His chakra was so bright and warm, she could get lost in it. It was warm and dazzling. Sasuke's was the same, but Blondie's was brighter and warmer. She just wanted to curl up inside of his chakra and sleep. A chill went up to her spine as she dug too deep and found something dark, something sinister lurking beneath all of his chakra. It was malicious and evil. Karen opened her eyes and gasped. You okay, Karen? How could she even answer that? Was that who Blondie really was under all this cheerfulness? Was he really a despicable person with chakra so dark? Or was there something else? I'm fine, just keep your eyes on the road. What road? She sighed. You can't be a smartass when you're already a dumbass. Just who the hell is Blondie? Later. Biggest river this side of the desert did not do the Megami justice. At its widest part the river could be comparable to a moving lake or a calm ocean. The entirety of the land of rivers was contained within its banks as the innumerable islands that littered the river were home to villages and cities. The largest island was an island fortress built right in the middle of the riverbed, known as Megami Castle, that served as the capital for the Lord of the Rivers. But the largest city was Kamane City, a conglomeration of many islands near the mouth of the river that formed into the largest trading mecca in the world. To say nothing of the river's natural beauty. The Megami was dyed a deep blue from the main cold glacier waters that fed into it, but as the various tributaries fed into it carrying waters and minerals from all over the world, the water changed color, smell, temperature, and flavor, creating a few places where it looked like every shade of blue could be seen. To Karen, it looked like a giant blob of blue. Karen? Blondie asked. He had come to a dead stop the moment they broke through the trees on a cliff that overlooked the soft sandy shore. The river they had been following crashed down as a waterfall into the Megami. Please tell me that's the Megami and not a Traipu Thingy. I guess you can say the name, right, when you're actually amazed at something, huh? She would be amazed too. If she wasn't blind. She couldn't even tell where the damn river ended and the sky began. So which way now? Blondie was practically bouncing with her on his back. Hold on, let me check. She closed her eyes and. What are you doing? Of course, she couldn't expect him to give her a moment to concentrate. Bad enough his chakra and that darkness inside of him was going to make things harder than they needed to be. I'm trying to concentrate, I have the ability to sense people's chakra. Oh, cool. Blondie chirped loudly. Do I have any cat raw? What's it like? Can I do that? She wanted to scream, so much right now. It didn't matter if Blondie thought she was cute. He was so annoying sometimes. Still, at least he thought her ability was cool. You have a lot of chakra, it's kind of warm, and I have no idea what you can. Now you be quiet so I can focus for a second. Oh, his shoulders slumped and his head drooped. Sorry, Karen. It was hard not to picture him as a puppy that didn't know it wasn't supposed to eat your slippers but felt really bad that it did. It's okay, Blondie, Karen sighed. She was ready for a warm bath, a warm bed, and some warm food. She closed her eyes focused. There had to be something nearby. A few people across the water, on one of the islands, reaching them would be a pain, even if she could walk, Blondie probably couldn't water walk anyways. She found them. A small gathering of people just down the shore, it had to be a house or something. Hopefully, they were the hospitable civilian type and not the hostile thug type. There's a house a few miles down the shore. Wow, you can sense that far? You're amazing, Karen. Blondie shouted with great enthusiasm. Do you think they'll have food? I don't know. Her stomach roiled at the thought of something to eat. But if we hurry we should be able to reach them before it gets dark. All right. Hang on tight, Karen. Before she could even process his warning, he took the quick way down from their cliff-top perch by jumping. Karen screamed. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3. The cabin radiated warmth and smelled of fish, sweet, and bread. It was small, happy, and homey, the very definition of a country cabin. With a large oak growing beside the house, where a lone swing set lulled by the wind. Grass, vines, and moss covered the stone foundation, and much of the roof as well, allowing the home to be at home in the forest. All Karen saw was a green and brown blob in the forest, only slightly shorter and squarer. But she saw the people. A family of 5, one had a faint wispy chakra that felt ready to blow away with the wind, an elder perhaps. One had strong and proud chakra that glowed with kindness, the father. The mother's was kind and caring, albeit slightly overworked and tired. 2 children, their chakras glowed like sparks ready to ignite a fire. Should we knock on the door? Her orange-clad steed nickered as he stared at the house. It couldn't hurt, Karen said from over his shoulder, the family felt welcoming enough. She wiggled her ankle, it was probably good enough to run on if need be. But why use her own energy when Blondie was all too happy to carry her around? He might not be Prince Charming, but he could certainly be a noble steed. Do you think you can walk now though? What? You getting tired? I thought you said you could do this all day? No, I'm not tired, it's just, won't they think it's weird that I'm carrying you? Blondie adjusted her weight slightly before he began to move towards the cabin. It might earn us sympathy points if you show up carrying an injured cute girl such as myself. People tended to be nice when they were either afraid of you or sympathetic towards you. And Karen was far from a terrifying beast. Isn't that tricking them though? Great, he had a moral compass. Karen sighed and sunk into Naruto's back more, allowing her arms to dangle in front of him. Just the extra bit of pathetic she needed. I'm hungry, you're hungry, if it makes you feel bad then I don't know, chop their wood, do chores or something. But we're broke, tired, and hungry. Though that might have summed up her life as well. Blondie nodded, she could practically see the smile on his face from behind him. At least him being a goody two-shoes meant that he wouldn't abandon her when it was to his benefit. But there weren't any plans of having a partner in crime. She was already the brains, maybe he could easily be the brawn? Blondie knocked the door with the subtlety and urgency of a hurricane that nearly shook the door off its hinges. Hello? Anybody home? My friend is hurt and we're lost, oh and hungry too, and I can cut the chores and do the firewood for you. His ears had to be tied in a knot somewhere in his brain. Karen remained silent, doing her best to look ever so slightly zonked out and in discomfort, should be easy considering she was blind. Best to let the smiling earnest idiot talk with a bunch of other smiling earnest idiots. The door shook back, and the sound of wood scraping against wood echoed from inside the house. There was mumbling and talking, and then more wood scraping. The door flung open to a blonde woman who was once beautiful but had been worn down by life. Oh my goodness, you both look ragged. Ryuji, Futaba, put some water on the fire. A tall man behind her relaxed, his arms were thick from carrying cords of wood and swinging around a heavy axe that thudded against a flower. Mayumi, are you sure about this? They could be. Oh, quit your worrying, Zen, they're just two kids. The woman shooed the man away with the back of her hand. Now let's get you two inside, my goodness, just looks at you. What happened? Are you okay? Oh, I don't really know what happened, Blondie shrugged, pushing Karen's head up ever so slightly. I only remember waking up after Karen pulled me up from the river. You lost your memories? A young orange-haired girl asked, running up to them. Futaba. A shrill elderly voice echoed from inside the house. You get back here and help your brother. The house was everything a home should be, warm, caring, a battle between the forces of cleanliness and filth. The house had a few modern conveniences, electricity being one of them. Running water the other. Which was odd, Karen didn't sense a town anywhere nearby. Mayumi ordered her family around like a line cook, expertly issuing command after command that sent the family scrambling. Karen liked her. Now then, Karen, right? Let me take a look at your ankle. Mayumi rolled up her sleeves as Karen sat on a hard wooden stool. Be careful, it's still sensitive. Karen hissed as the woman touched her ankle. It really didn't hurt, but she had to at least act like she was hurt, otherwise, they could get suspicious. Oh my, you really twisted it bad, that you did. The woman began to wrap a wet cloth around Karen's foot. It's not much, but this should relieve the pain just a bit. Sorry for troubling you so much. Nonsense, girl, us decent folks have to look out for one another. That we do. She stood, finishing off the cloth with a slightly too tight knot. Now, I'll warm up some of the supper for you, then you and the boy can rest here tonight. Does he have a name? Food? Shelter? Hopefully, a blanket or something warm she could snuggle up with. That wasn't an idiot. I've been calling him Blondie, and really you're too kind, we wouldn't want to be a bother. Nonsense, a couple of friendly faces is just what this family needs right now. There was the edge to the woman's voice, something that she was trying to hide. So what's your story? Karen swallowed, she didn't need to act. She just needed to stop acting. I was abandoned during a recent storm, somehow I ended up saving Blondie. Huh, well he's a better catch than anything my husband has pulled out of the water, that he is, Mayumi laughed, taking a seat next to Karen. That got Karen's attention. Is he cute? What you mean you can't tell? Karen pouted in the vague direction of the blob. Inside the house her vision was worse, grays blended with browns, reds, woods, blues, only the flickering fire gave her any real clarity as her world took on the depth of a pastel painting made by a child with far too much paint. When I saved him, I lost my glasses, so I can't really see anything, I don't even know what he looks like. Oh my, did this lady have to start every sentence like that? Well, then how do I put it, let's see. Oh, he has a round face and has some cute little whisker marks on the cheeks, he's not much to look at right now. Well, so much for Prince Charming, back to the horse theory, at least he wasn't run away screaming ugly. Still, she really shouldn't be surprised, she did literally fish him out of a river. But, he's going to be quite handsome when he grows up. What now? Karen wrinkled up her nose. How can you know that? Oh, trust me, once you get to my age it becomes painfully obvious which boys are going to become the good handsome men and which ones become, well, bastards. There's a story there, isn't there? Karen asked, scrunching her face in the vague direction of Mayumi's blob. The woman laughed. I'm afraid that story is much too mature for someone your age, that it is. Karen just folded her arms and pouted like a kid. The woman didn't even know her, hell she was a ninja, there was no way this peasant could possibly know anything about being a ninja. To say nothing of her own past. That's my point, that it is. Mayumi chuckled once again. I'll go and fix you and Blondie a bit of food, just enough to settle your stomach, before we send you two to bed. Thank you so much. Those words came directly from Karen's stomach. After the meal, Karen flopped onto the spare bedroll Mayumi had given her. The clean feeling of her freshly washed skin, mostly free of dirt, was wonderful against the warm spare clothes she had been given. And the bedroll that she had been given was as soft as a cloud. It's like a day at the spa. Her faithful companion Blondie just snored in her general direction. Apparently, he wasn't bad to look at. He certainly didn't sound cute or handsome. He sounded stupid. And he was nice. Stupid nice people were always some degree of ugly. Mean people were also ugly. But that didn't change anything. There's no way that I'm buying into you being an ugly duckling, Karen snorted and snuggled into her covers. She closed her eyes and listened to the world around her. Blondie was snoring like a well-fed baby, it was almost peaceful. As her other senses faded into sleep, the world around her began to light up as she activated her mind's eye. She wouldn't sleep without it, no matter how exhausted she might be. It was her light in the darkness. The grandmother was asleep, Karen never got her name. The two children were fast asleep while their mother was failing to fall asleep nearby. Zen, the father, was sitting next to the door. His chakra was tense, like it was on the verge of exploding at the slightest movement. Why was he so on edge? Was he always like that? The ever-vigilant alpha protecting his pack? Or was it something else? His edge felt recent, like a new development or some long-forgotten fact. There, out in the woods, like a coiled snake ready to strike, a man appeared. His chakra wasn't anything special, a bit twisted perhaps. Another appeared, then another. Karen expanded her range and, oh no. 10, 20, 30, 40, no 50 chakra signatures had encircled them. And they were closing in for the kill. One chakra signature stood out from the rest, a tiger among the alley cats. His chakra was sharp and strong and used like a ninja or someone trained to fight with chakra. Worse, it was large, larger than the average Chunin. They were too coordinated for it to be a coincidence. This was a targeted attack and a well-thought-out one. Escape would be difficult, and being caught would make things worse. No, she had one advantage. These men didn't know that she, or Blondie, were here. They were after the people that lived in this house. They could hide and leave once everything passed over. But where? The closet. She moved with a slow deliberation. This wasn't the first time she had to hide for her life. She grabbed her bedroll and flopped it onto of Blondie, who snored in response. She could just leave him. Finding him sleeping would increase her chances of survival or might encourage them to search the house. Risks aside, Blondie was her idiot. She saved him once, might as well make it twice, then he'd owe her twice over. You're going to owe me big time. I want a house with water and electricity. I also want a good view and a bed and a shower with hot water. And some new glasses, Karen grumbled, pulling Blondie towards the closet, which was just large enough for both of them if she lied down on top of him. It was a halfway decent disguise really, a pile of bedsheets and clothes sandwiched between two bedrolls. Once again Karen found herself cuddling with that Bond idiot she dragged out of her water. Once again for their own survival. Karen? Blondie groaned, choosing now of all times to wake up. What's going on? Why's it so dark? Why are you so close? Am I carrying you again? I can't carry you to sleep. Wait, can I? Another annoying trait to add to the list. He mumbled when he first woke up. If you want to live, keep quiet, Karen hissed, pressing her hand over Blondie's mouth. The men were closer now. A thud echoed through the living room, the door was kicked in, the father shouted, some other men shouted, the grandmother screamed. Men flooded into the house. Blondie struggled and managed to free his mouth. What's happening? Someone is attacking the house, I don't know why, but if we go out there we'll be killed too. She pressed down on Naruto's shoulder, using her full weight to keep him down. They're not after us. She hoped. Mayumi was awake, her chakra snapped into shape. It was a small pool, but one that had been used before. How had she not seen it before? The woman screamed in fury and rage and began to attack. One man died, then another, a third confronted her and fell moments later. And the mean others had taken the children and the father outside. The grandmother was dead. Let me go, Karen, I'm a ninja, right? I can help. You'll die. Karen hissed, slapping her hand over Blondie's mouth again. He needed to be alive. She didn't know why the thought of him dying made the bile in her stomach roil. Probably because he didn't treat her like dog shit. A great roar boomed from outside, like a beast of thunder dominating the land. Mayumi. So this is where you were hiding. Surrender yourself nice like, and I'll let your kids live. Can't say much about the father. Blondie pushed her off him. I'm going to help them. You'll die, she cried, scrambling after him, only to grab onto his heel as he stood to walk out there unarmed, in nothing but a few ill-fitted clothes. Please, think about this, it's not too late to hide. I have to, Blondie continued to walk, his foot slipping out of her fingers. She wanted to scream. He just had to be an idiot knight in stupid shining orange armor. Idiot, idiot, idiot. He was her meal ticket. And now he was going to go out there and die. And why the hell was she following him? This had bad idea written all over it. Mayumi had been captured now and was being beaten. They were just two genin. one that couldn't fight, and one that didn't have any memories. The outside was lit by torches. Mayumi sat in the center of the group, being held by her arms by two of the larger men. Her family, equally restrained, forced to watch as she was beaten. "You gave up us for this?" A large man bellowed, his chakra roaring like a wild tiger. He was built like a brick shithouse. In his youth he might have been a mountain of muscle that ate the meal of 3 men. But with age, that mountain had grown fat, though the muscle remained underneath. The large tattoo of a white tiger consumed his entire right arm and stretched up his shoulder blade. "Piss off," Mayumi spat. His reply was another slap to her face that sounded like thunder. "Hey!" Blondie shouted, "let them go." There went stealth and surprise, their only 2 advantages. Aside from Blondie's chakra, that was still more than all the other men combined, but that did a lot when he probably couldn't even use it. It's not like he'd remember how to fight, let alone any jutsu. "You in what army, punk?" The tiger roared, his massive gut shaking as he laughed. "Tell you what, sell me your little girlfriend, and I might let you join my gang." Oh, joy, looks like she was going to be sold again. Blondie tightened, his entire body tensing, before he relaxed into a smile. His chakra began to rage like the ocean at storm, gathering in strength and ferocity. He was summoning it. That massive amount of chakra was being gathered for a purpose. "Boss!" A thug shouted from the crowd. "That's him. The one that beat us back when we worked with Gato. This is the brat that cost us, Gato. Screw it. I'll just kill you and your little girlfriend." The boss roared, his tattoo lighting up with sparks of lightning. "Don't let him use his jutsu." The same thug shouted. Blondie formed a hand sign. One hand sign. And his chakra went wild. Shadow clone jutsu. There was a flash, and Karin was dazzled for a moment. Her mind's eye going wild, the number of chakra signatures had doubled, no tripled. No more, much more. In the space between heartbeats, Blondie had flipped the numbers in their favor with an army of himself. "Charge!" They all shouted at once. Karin could do nothing, she didn't need to. Blondie knew how to fight, he could use a jutsu, and what a spectacular one at that. The cannon fodder fell under the might of his swarm. The only one that put up a fight was the boss with his arm throwing off lightning, a one-trick pony that would work with non-ninjas. But Blondie's trick was better. In the end, all those that didn't run were beaten within an inch of their lives. The only one still conscious was the thug that knew him. "Look, I'm sorry, I'll give up thugging for good. Just please don't hurt me again. You know me, right?" The thug nodded frantically. "Then where did we meet before? The wave, don't you remember? It was you and your team and that damn Zabuza that killed Gato in the wave." Karin sighed. "Looks like we need a boat." She hated the water. End of chapter 3. Chapter 4. The sound of money was music to Karin's ears, and due to them clearing out an entire bandit gang last night, Karin now had more money in her hand than she had ever had. Still, it wasn't much, enough for a few stays at an inn, maybe a charter for a boat to the wave. But most importantly, if Karin knew her money, which she did even when blind, enough for a new pair of glasses. And that was after Blondie had insisted on giving the lion's share to the family. "So do you know where the wave is?" Blondie asked, his hand grabbing hers to help her over a stump. It was like he had a thing for hand-holding, that or he was just a touchy person, maybe she should let him carry her again. Her feet were hurting. Karin grunted as she hopped over the stump with his help, the warm summer sun piercing through the thick forest canopy mixed well with the moist wind that blew from the river. It's a large island off the coast of the Land of Fire or the Land of Tea. It was once a thriving nation filled with ports, but since the Third War and the destruction of its sister nation, the Land of Whirlpools, it's been in a state of decline. The quickest way for us to get there is to get a boat to take us there. Wow, you sure do know a lot of stuff, huh, Karin? Blondie smiled at her, though to her, it looked like he had one giant tooth that was splitting his face. Kind of like his skeleton was trying to exit his meat suit. "And don't you forget it, knucklehead." Karin waited for him to take the lead once again. She was sure there was a path or a road that would have led them to the closest town in a less hazardous path, but she couldn't make it out from one slightly less green patch from the next slightly less green patch, so she gave Blondie the simple direction of south while she looked for a mass of chakra. "I'm the brains of this operation. And the cute one. Great. Just great." He remembered how to flirt. That wasn't anywhere near as useful as his jutsu. All that did was make her cheeks warm, that he might actually be cute. He was so frustrating. On the one hand he was an idiot, on the other hand he was legitimately the nicest person she had ever met, nobody else had put up with her this much. "You're just saying that 'cause I'm the only girl you've seen," Karen grumbled as she nudged him southward along the straight line that he had chosen. "I saw Mayumi and Futaba." Blondie laughed, pushing some branches out of their path. She had given him simple instructions: keep the river on their right. So when they found a port tower or some other fishing village where they could borrow, steal, bargain, haggle, stow away a boat downriver until they could find an actual seafaring vessel. "Gee, thanks, I appreciate being compared to a 5-year-old and a retired Yakuza boss." Karen rolled her eyes, which proved to be a bad idea as the world blurred and made her head spin slightly. This was getting annoying, it was like the entire world was made of jello. Blondie hopped in front of her again, a blonde and orange blob that served as her beacon in the clouded forest. It felt like her eyesight was becoming worse, especially because she couldn't even remember what clarity looked like. What would she do if she couldn't get another pair of glasses? How was she going to read or look at cute boys? She'd have to actually get to know people and judge them by their personality. Holy crap, she was a shallow bitch. Still, she had gotten to know Blondie without her glasses, and things seemed okay. Sure, he was an idiot, but he was also kind, caring, heroic, and a bunch of other traits that were going to get him killed someday. But he was also reliable. "Holy crap, I think you're my best friend." Huh? He looked back at her, his voice laced with confusion. "What do you mean? You didn't have any friends back in your village?" "No, everybody there hated me for being an outsider, all thanks to my stupid red hair." Ah yes, her tragic backstory, perfect for some kind of underdog redemption story where she could prove them all wrong and become an accepted member of the village. As if that had a snowball's chance in hell of happening. She was done with the village hidden in the grass. "Well, if it makes you feel any better, I like your red hair, it's very pretty." "You've said that before." Several times actually, he was obsessed with red hair. And she was not going to let him know that she liked it. "Doesn't mean it's any less true." He helped her down from a stump like she was a princess exiting her carriage. "Are you sure you weren't a toad?" Karen asked, failing to fight away the smile that he was putting on her face. "Toad? No, I don't think so, I mean I'm a human, right?" Blondie asked. "Oh, it's just an old Uzumaki fairy tale my mom used to tell me." "Oh, can you tell me it?" "What?" "No. It's embarrassing, and it's boring, no fighting, just girly love stuff, you wouldn't like it." Karen tried to wave him off. "We don't have anything better to do." That was a fair point. "Fine," Karen sighed and ran a hand through her hair. "It's been a while since I've heard it, and if you talk or laugh before I finish I'm going to stop, got it?" "Yes, ma'am." Blondie smacked his lips shut with a pop and bumbled forward. "Right, so a long time ago, there was a princess that lived in a castle. The princess didn't have any friends, and her family was always too busy for her. So she spent most of her days alone, exploring the castle gardens. One day a toad hops out of the pond." Karen droned on at first, but began to enjoy herself the more she spoke. She croaked like a toad. "Hello, princess, if you give me a kiss I can make your dreams come true." The toad croaked. Karen said in a raspy voice that tickled the back of her throat. Her efforts earned a stifled chuckle from Blondie, at least he was trying. "You are but a toad, why would I kiss you?" The princess said, somehow completely fine, that there was a talking toad asking for kisses coming out of her pond. Karen smiled to herself. "And wouldn't you rather get a kiss from a lady toad?" "No, my dear," the toad croaked, "I have been watching you for a while now and have determined that you are my one true love." "Oh, you are too kind, Mr. Toad," the princess said apologetically. "But I am afraid that I cannot love you, for you are a toad and I am a princess." "Then I ask that you simply talk with," the toad begged. Karen cleared the throat and examined the soft light that came in through the forest canopy. It was just past noon now. The princess agreed and talked to the toad until night began to fall. She did so the next day, and the day after that, and so on, until the toad became her best friend. And each night the toad would ask her for a good night kiss, but each night she would refuse. Until one day, she realized that she loved the toad, he made her feel special and wanted. So he kissed the toad. Something magical happened when she did, and she found herself kissing not a toad, but a beautiful Princess Charming. "I don't understand," the princess gasped, "I thought you were a toad." "No," Prince Charming laughed as he cupped her cheek gently. "I was cursed to take the form of a toad until I received a kiss from my one true love." They then lived happily ever after. Why was the prince cursed? Blondie asked the second she finished. I don't know. Karen frowned. The story didn't really go into it. That or she forgot. Huh, so does that mean you kissed me? Blondie asked. No, I'm tempted to punch you though. Karen crossed her arms and frowned. Maybe I should, could be a great way to get your memories back. I have a feeling that won't help anything, Blondie grumbled, rubbing a spot on his head. But would you ask if I was a frog? Because you're nice and sweet like Prince Charming, even if you're an idiot. Karen huffed, she shoved the burning of her cheeks into the back of her mind. And don't forget you owe me a new life. Don't worry Karen, I promise you that I'll get you your happily ever after. Stupid idiot Prince was way too good at saying random gibberish that made her heart beat. Believe it. You better. She mumbled. She just wanted a house of her own, with a strong, handsome, loving husband that made enough so that she didn't have to work would be great. Kids optional. Oh, I think I sense a town up ahead. Karen gasped as she felt hundreds of weak chakra signatures all milling about in the afternoon sun. That meant food, supplies, and transportation. Really? That's awesome Karen. He grabbed her hand again and began to run. Let's go. I'm so hungry. In the tavern. Karen sighed into the bowl of ramen that Blondie had dragged her to. It was warm, hearty and probably the closest thing to a full meal she had eaten in days. While Mayumi's cooking was good, it lacked the flavor and fillingness of ramen. What made you decide to choose this place? I used my nose. Blondie pointed towards his nose as a clump of noodles hung from his mouth. I think I really like ramen, cause this is so good. Yay, it tastes great. Best part was that it was cheap, especially when she considered how much she got with just one bowl. It was easily a lunch and dinner combo. Karen looked over to Blondie and saw that he was already working on his second bowl. Or maybe it would be an afternoon snack for him. Can we eat this every day, Karen? Blondie asked her, practically bouncing in his seat. I don't see why not. Instant ramen was especially easy to make, especially if they had a reliable heat source. And it was also cheap. And cheap was good. Very good. We'll buy some when we hit the store. That made Blondie happy, if his slurping was any indication. After meal. Karen flopped down onto the mattress and sighed at its heavenly softness. She wasn't made for all this wilderness traveling her and Blondie had been doing. She was a princess and needed to be pampered every single day with such luxuries as a bed and running water. She was clean, actually clean for the first time in forever. She had taken a long bath and simply enjoyed herself. She ran a hand over her arm and felt its clean smoothness. Shame she wasn't sharing a bed with Blondie, that way she could share her wonderful smoothness. Wait, what was she thinking? It was a good thing they had a room with 2 beds. She had half expected them to end up sharing a bed because of some sick joke life was playing on her. Was the bath that good? Blondie asked, his usual orange blob exchanged for a blue set of clothing. She couldn't have him walking around wearing a jacket with a giant hole in the middle of it. It was wonderful, Karen laughed, flipping onto her back to stare up at the muted ceiling. How'd the packing go? Good, I got almost everything into the bags. Blondie kicked at his slightly overstuffed bag. There were. Are you sure you don't want me to carry more? Nah, it's fine, Karen smiled as she felt the warmness of her bed. She was going to sleep so good tonight. Hopefully with no bandit attack in the middle of the night or some other apocalyptic event. She just wanted one night where she could sleep soundly without having to worry about the world exploding. I'm sorry we couldn't find a place to get you glasses. That's not your fault though, Karen looked his way, putting on her best smile. I wasn't surprised that a town of this size didn't have one. We'll just spend some time in Kamane City. She couldn't believe their luck. They had found a man willing to take them all the way to Kamane City in exchange for Blondie doing a bit of ship work. Hopefully, he wasn't the seasick type. Now, let's rest up, we have a long day ahead of us tomorrow. She smiled into her bed, slipping underneath the soft, freshly washed blankets. Oh, this was good, her entire body relaxing like she was being massaged by warmth. As Blondie turned off the light and slid into his own bed, he spoke. Hey, Karen? She grunted in response. Huh. He was oddly quiet for a moment, then he sighed. Never mind, I'll talk to you tomorrow. That night Karen dreamed of Blondie feeding her ramen. End of chapter 4.